talked about Rem, we've talked about Street Brawl. I think we can talk about kind of like a lot of the stuff that's really new to the main game,
Heck
which would
yeah.
be, I mean, the biggest thing is the new bases, right? So there's new bases and there's new items. We might have time to touch on them. Um, so the new bases, for anybody that isn't familiar, the Hidden King. So before it was the Amber Hand and Sapphire Flame. Now it's been kind of rethemed. They've kept the color scheme, but it's the Hidden King and the Arch Mother. So the Hidden King is the Amber Hand, or is what the Amber Hand was, so to speak, and the Arch Mother is the Sapphire Flame. So the moment you go into a game and you load, you've got kind of this like intro screen. First of all, there's a bunch of like new like splash screens and intro screens. Like you load into a game, it says like, oh, now playing as Rem, right? And it shows you a little splash art of Rem or this hero. And there's different poses in the splash art.
Poses,
like
yeah.
the attention to detail is kind of crazy. And then you load into the game, you've got the little intro with the kind of theme song of whether it's the Hidden King or the Arch Mother. Now I gotta say the Hidden King song is a banger.
It's goated, dude. That thing's
it's so good,
so crunchy, just so distorted. It's fun. That's a great, great riff.
Oh yeah. Every time I load into the Hidden King, I'm hyped. So I think that Valve did a fantastic job with the OST. But no, I digress. My whole point is the entire bases have been changed. They've been redesigned visually, but also they've been redesigned from a like map design perspective, right? It's not just like a visual overhaul of, hey, we kept the same bases but we themed them to the Hidden King and the Arch Mother. No, it's like the bases have been completely reworked. They're not symmetrical. Each base has some unique characteristics. They're freaking massive.
Yeah.
And the skybox is like, there's such a sense of like height and like grandeur, so to speak, when you like are in the base. It feels like an Elden Ring boss fight or something.
It does.
Right? It's actually like massive.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It really does feel like you're walking into a boss room in Elden Ring. Like that's actually the feeling you get when you walk into either of the bases. It's kind of intimidating, which I think is a good thing. But I do like the fact that it feels like there are way more areas to fight in the base than there were previously. Like otherwise, like the last iteration of the base is like you fight around the shrine or try to fight them like in the like the channels around your base guardians before they get into the base, right? Like those were like kind of where you're fighting unless you're fighting in the pit. But now it feels way different, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on like the redesign of the bases entirely, like the shrines being up on these pedestals, the abilities that they have now. Like how does this affect sieging and defending?
Yeah. I think that at the end of the day, it's a very, very like interesting redesign. One thing that I'll say is basically there's advantages and disadvantages to this redesign from a balance perspective. So I think the biggest advantage, or like the biggest thing that's changed, I guess, is now it feels harder to get into the enemy base, right? So the initial step of like getting into the enemy base, killing the base guardians, that stuff is definitely harder, right? So getting past the base guardians, there's no longer the windows that allow you easy access to the high ground. You kind of need to get up there one way or another. So it's just harder to get into the enemy base. However, once you are in the enemy base, the base is very, very open, and it's very like there's a lot of space between the entrance of the base and the enemy spawn.
Yes.
So what that means is that if the enemies try to hold around the base guardians, right, and you get past the base guardians, it can be pretty easy to run them down and catch them before they get back to the spawn. So there's kind of like defenders are advantaged in a way, and then in another way, defenders are disadvantaged, if that makes sense. So
yeah,
it's a mix of both. And there's not really like, well, what's the word? I guess there's not really like a consensus yet, in my opinion. Now I've seen a lot of players that dislike kind of like how open and huge the bases are and how asymmetrical they are. I think I've seen players that like it. To me, the most important thing, and we'll talk about the vents a little bit because that's been a new addition to the game, but the most important thing when they add things like these to the game is how does it feel, right? And like, is it cool? And I think that the bases are awesome and they're super cool. And so I'm like, the balance of it can be adjusted, right? Like if we need to balance certain things or readjust base design, that can be done. But like the theme, the art, the like presence of both patrons is definitely like Valve nailed it. And so I'm not too worried about, the balance of it. I'm sure that, they'll make iterations of it and fix it if people are unhappy.
Yeah, I agree. I think, maybe like some more time before we kind of figure out what's good and what's bad, or what needs to be modified. I do have to give one huge nod to the people that designed the base guardians, by the way, because these things are so cool. The new base guardians for each side are like S tier designs. They have all sorts of like little movements and things that they do if you even get close to them. They're way more difficult to bring down, I feel like, than they were previously. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
if it just feels that way, but to me it's like, if I'm playing a gun here, I don't just like melt both base guardians in one clip. Like I actually have to put in a lot of damage to bring down base guardians, it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if we
Yeah.
have the numbers on that yet. I don't see it anywhere, but it
Mhm.
it definitely feels that way. Um, so I really
Yeah,
just,
I didn't check the numbers, but it's definitely, it definitely feels that way. I agree.
yeah. And then the I don't know. I love the fact that when you are sieging now, you mentioned it, you can punish people that are defending. If they are a little bit too far forward, it's a lot further to just get back to the fountain. Like there's areas where there are like, a little bit safe up on the higher ground sometimes near their fountain area, but they're not actually inside the fountain with the regen. So it's a little bit easier to
Yeah.
catch people outside of the actual fountain area. And uh
Yeah.
yeah, I think it just adds more depth to the gameplay in terms of like the sieging and the defending aspect. And I'm really
Yeah.
excited to see like kind of little ways people find to like abuse the new avenues, the new corners, and um yeah, it's cool. Do you have a prefer, like, do you have like a favorite base so far? Like obviously we talked about this, the OST,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
curious if you have like a, how do you like the Archmother versus the Hidden King? Because we haven't even really talked about the Archmother yet, huh? We've only really mentioned the
We
Hidden
haven't
King.
really talked about the Archmother much. So the main differences, I mean, there's a couple differences, okay, but one of the main ones is the fact that the Archmother base is more open than the Hidden King's base.
Mhm.
Hidden King has these trucks that you can like hide inside with veils, whereas the Archmother doesn't have that. So, for example, against Lash ult, right? Like if you're playing Lash, you would much prefer to be playing in the Archmother base than
Mhm.
the Hidden King one because there's just less hiding spots. So that's kind of one thing. Now, um, what I'll say is I kind of like both bases. From a look perspective, I really like the super like clean kind of controlling nature
Yeah.
of the Arch Mother base. Like I think it looks dope. I think it looks, I mean, I think both bases look incredible. Let me just say that. But I think if I had to pick one that I think looks amazing, it would be the Arch Mother, and I would pick the Hidden King OST. So it's kind of like, but I think the Arch Mother OST is also really good. It feels it fits the vibe of
Yeah.
this kind of like controlling, kind of like, I guess, motherly figure in this situation, which is also shown through voice lines, and there's new voice acting and so many things going on there. But I would say visually the Archmother base is my favorite one for sure. What about you?
I was surprised how much I liked the Archmother. I thought when I saw the initial like display of the two new patrons, I was like, oh, I'm gonna love Hidden King way more. And then I go to the bases and I was like, I don't know, I kind of really like the Archmother base. It feels uh really cool inside the base. I think the
Mhm.
the lighting and the colors play really well, and I think that's why I really like the Archmother base. I have a hard time picking between them. But I think the more time I spend in the Archmother base, the more I like it, and the more like details and stuff I notice. I'm like, dang, that's
Sure.
so cool. But
Yeah,
yeah, I agree. I
reasonable.
do like the OST for Hidden King. Also, big shout out to Mr. Krabs coming in and offering his support to Deadlock. That is one of my favorite things.
True.
SpongeBob, me boy, he's gonna be telling you what to do constantly.
Yeah.
He's such a great voice actor for that. It's unbelievable how well he
Yeah.
fits that role.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people kind of be mixed feelings about it. I'm not really like a voice acting guy, so I don't really care that much either way. In the sense that I care more about the gameplay than things like that. But that's just me. I'm the type of guy that played games, and like I have, for example, I have 1,500 hours of Path of Exile, but I still don't really know what's going on in that game, like lore wise. Like I don't really know what's happening in that world.
That's
So
fine.
I'm that type of guy that just basically just plays the game, plays the gameplay and then what's happening in the world, sometimes I'm a little clueless. But you know, Deadlock's doing a great job, and I mean, Deadlock is getting me attached to some heroes, like for example, Rem, more than most games have in the past. So I think that they're doing something right. So we've talked a little bit about the bases now. Talk about the